I might just introduce a little bit. I'm sure Megan will tell you the story, her version of the story of the podcast, and how and the project and how it came to be. We call it with all due respect, and there's a certain sort of flipped irony about that, because when someone opens a sentence with all due respect, they're usually about to say something not respectful, just as a person who says, I'm not a racist, is often about to say something racist or sexist. You know, it's often a phrase that's not literally true. But we wanted it to be literally true, because we wanted to model a kind of conversation that we felt was certainly lacking, not just in Christian circles, but everywhere. And we came to, well, I don't know, we almost came to blows perhaps on a Facebook discussion about Jordan Peterson of things.
Two,
and
I think, two discussions. Over 2 days.
Yes, over 2 days. And then went on to a private chat and said, wouldn't it be funny to do what if we did a podcast? I don't know whose joke it was, but all the best ideas start as jokes, and we're now living the joke. We thought we'd do a podcast. We differ in we share some vital things in common, but we differ markedly in some others. I mean, I'm an Anglican and Megan's a Baptist, but that's not a significant difference in that we're both we would describe as evangelicals, and evangelicals tend to collaborate across denominational boundaries. So we find sort of meetings of bishops with other bishops from denominations a little bit sort of, well, we've been doing this before at a sort of local level. And so that's been certainly true here in Australia, a lot of collaboration there. But in particular, I would say we differ over women in ministry. And that's not an abstract question, as no doubt Megan will say from her perspective. I mean, obviously, that's a question in which that actually goes to Megan's entire vocation. On the other hand, I'm being a conservative on those questions. My fear is that people will just think I'm a bad person and that I'm not theologically convicted. And so we have to negotiate that. And I won't say that's a kind of completely sunshine and lollipops and rainbows sort of process. That actually takes negotiation, practice, and process. You can't kind of just magic that stuff away. And that's what I'd really like to see in discussions about difference. A taking of one's ideas, theological convictions, seriously. I have been involved in ecumenical discussions before here in Sydney, and I tended to find them very fluffy. They were all just sharing of experiences, and we never really got to grips with one another. We never really were able to say, well, actually, I don't agree with that, or I find that uncomfortable, or actually, what does let's see what the scripture and the tradition tell us here. So I always found them, amiable, but a kind of pointless. Whereas I find what I want to see in our project, and what I find in our project, is actually I feel like progress and growth is made by taking the person seriously and the convictions seriously. I like the word convictions because it names the way in which our ideas actually inhabit us. They're not just abstract. It's not just a theological debate out here, but it is something that the ideas that form and shape us. So I really want that to be part of our conversation, part of our project. I would also say I think Christians have every reason to be doing this better because of our hope. Because I think this is quite crucial for us. We don't have to win all the time. I think that's the paradigm in the world, is very much win loss, or you might say dog eat dog, which means everyone's basically performing like a dog. It's a battle. We all know that's the sort of the way of the internet, the way in fact the internet actually wants to make money out of us by making us angry, by making us flame against one another, and by polarizing. We Christians, we don't have to do that. We can both take our convictions seriously take the other seriously, especially the other who says they love Jesus and whose love of Jesus we can actually see, we can hear. We can walk towards them and yet not have a kind of idealism which says if we don't agree on everything, then we can't have anything we can't say anything to one another. In fact, I think this hope we have helps us not to be perfectionist or idealistic. It means that sometimes we've got ideas that we just can't resolve. And humanly, maybe we can't. I think there's something liberating about saying we're only human and we're fallen. And so, perfect understanding of ourselves and of the other person is just not available to us always. And even though we attempt, we don't have to be completely dismayed when we don't achieve a perfect outcome here. Maybe we just form a friendship, keep talking. Maybe we have to operate different. The relationships have to operate differently. That's okay, because I feel like we ought to rest more in the sovereignty of God, knowing that He sorts it out. In His kindness and mercy, He will reconcile Himself to all things, and indeed reconcile us to one another. And pray too for the work of the Holy Spirit, so that even again, when we can't see the way forward, we know we have the kind of chemotherapy of the Spirit to reduce the tumors of division. You might say, I hope that's not a gross metaphor, but I think it works for me. So I think that's what the project means to me. What I'd like to see in it. The struggle is always, I think, to be both genuine to your convictions, especially if you're peaceable like me, don't like conflict very much, to be genuine to your convictions in a way that is actually in the midst of a growing friendship where you actually like the other person. You don't want to say things that might upset or go to things that are a matter of tension or disagreement. So I think I might stop there and ask and throw to Megan and hear Megan's version. Which may differ.
Okay. So I should just say straight up, I have woken up to an internet outage at my house, so I'm hotspotting from my phone. So any of the issues with sound and picture and so on are due to that. I'm very sorry.
We do have
Australia. We don't have great internet.
We do have it. We do have it, though.
We do have it, but it's not the best. So partly I want to fill in a little bit more about Sydney, where we are, which is quite a strongly evangelical city, but quite a divided city. And so the divisions are not just between evangelicals and those who aren't, but also between evangelicals. And there's a lot of tensions, connections and tensions within those communities. So there's a lot of movement between them, and people know each other, but there's particular issues that there's lots of tension that include women in ministry is a major tension in Sydney, and perceptions about what's happened with the history in terms of who's taken over what group and that kind of thing. And then even things like, another major difference would be that the Sydney Anglicans are quite Calvinist and Reformed, and that's not the case for all the evangelicals in Sydney. And then, of course, also we have a very large Pentecostal movement here as well with Hillsong. So it's quite a vibrant city in terms of what's going on in terms of churches, but quite a diverse and divided city at times. And that's really, so my own doctoral research has been on tensions within evangelicalism, and that's really come out of the situation that I find myself in and have been in my whole life. And Michael and I are, we're individuals, so we both sit in different tribes in that. But, are not necessarily, core or stereotypical versions of that, of our tribes. And we bring in our community connections and background, but we also bring in the individualness of who we are. and those two things interact. And I think what has happened for me with the project is it's not just negotiating the friendship between myself and Michael, but it's negotiating the relationships of the communities involved and that we are part of. And sometimes the friendship that we have, as Michael's already said, requires some depth and patience and acknowledgement of emotion and that kind of thing. But sometimes the friendship, in fact, is easy. And what we're dealing with is the tensions and reputation and all the different risks and dangers that go when different communities come together. And so, particularly for Michael and myself, we both have friends across the spectrum. Obviously, I have friends more to the left, if you like, in Christian circles, and he has friends more to the right. And our audience, therefore, has quite a large spectrum if you do all the overlapping groups that come together in who listens to us and who is involved in our Facebook community, which is about 1,400 people. And that takes a lot of navigating as well. So that's, I think, one of the things that for me has been really significant as we've done this project together and as we've done the podcast. And the project arose from the podcast in that we started the podcast and we realised actually this is a growing movement of people that we are dealing with and that are wanting us to do more together, is that you have to work through with people what they're coming out of. People are not formed in isolation from their communities. And often I think when we get on social media or we get into a conversation with someone, we just treat someone as an individual. But we have to be aware of someone embedded in community. And I think as I've interacted with Michael's community, that I've understood some of where people are coming from. I've understood the hurts that people have experienced in that community and how I need to navigate those hurts with them, as well as, you know, I had my own hurts or my own community that I'm navigating. And so I think that's a bit of a, it's a counter to or an answer to some of the individualism that's very present in Western society, including Australia, and also I think within evangelicalism, and that's really our community. And we are trying to, I think, say, no, we are embedded people and we need to be able to deal with each other on that basis. One of the things that's happened with that is perhaps our most popular episode that we've done is on gender, because it's is popular the right word, Michael?
It was certainly listened to.
Listened to, yeah. A very engaged with episode where that took us a while to do. So we've talked about lots of things. Sometimes we talk about something which we're both in agreement on, and sometimes we talk about something that we both have some significant disagreements on. But the one that took us a while to get to, because we wanted to do it well and we wanted to not destroy our friendship in the middle of that, was the one on women in ministry. And so when we did that one, by the time we did it, there's a lot of trust. And so that was important to develop trust. And we talked very honestly. So I think we ended up asking each other a couple of questions. I think Michael asked me whether I thought he was a misogynist. And and I asked him whether he thought I was called by God. So it got down to the very personal, as well as talking through our convictions, and we managed to do that, I think, with a lot of honesty. I think I said that I thought that complementarian theology was sinful, but it also, I think, with a lot of love and care, and as Mike was saying, that's what we've been trying to do, is to allow conviction and emotion to sit there, but also to say that in Christ there is unity, there is love, and even beyond the Christian community, because we have people who listen to us who are interested in the project who aren't Christians, that there is a commonality in being human, that we can we can come alongside and love and appreciate each other without having to agree all the time. And then perhaps the other thing that I want to bring up besides that sort of community, emotion, the other thing that's been really...
Oh no. I wonder what the other thing is. I might, if she come back, I might just this was not a completion of her thought. That would be the wrong thing to do. And I might just add in that.
Hi, Michael.
You back?
I'm back. Yes, as I said, it's a great moment to get my internet go down. The one thing I was going to say besides community and emotion is also that we don't have a very good mode of dealing with conversation about difference. And so people assume that it's going to be debate.
Yep, there she's gone again. Yeah, people assume it's going to be about debate. I think I know what Megan's going to say here is that people think it's going to be, like the Oxford Union, position A, position B, and then a kind of conflict paradigm. And I think that's not always the way to do difference, actually, because you can be, I think the word Kyra used before was curiosity. It's part of the difference project is curiosity. And I think that's an important posture to have is curiosity, curiosity and humility. I would have thought a Christian who knows their own propensity to sin, their brokenness, should approach these matters with humility. With the first gesture is, well, I really don't know everything, so maybe I can learn something here. So I'm just finishing your thought, Megan. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I've come back in. I'm like, oh, you're bringing up what I was saying.
Yeah, about conversation, not argument necessarily.
Yeah, that's where I was going. See, we've known each other for a long time now. So so yes, one of the things that people kept going was, why isn't it more like a debate? We want you to have carefully worked out positions that you're both defending to the hilt or something. And actually, that's not what it's like, and that's not what a relationship is like. And we've sort of changed our minds as we've talked. Sometimes in the middle of talking, we find things in common. We want to explore. So it's a conversation and not a debate. So that's been really interesting. And I think the other side of that is that people have wanted us to resolve things, which I think is something that you've brought out as well. That people have said, well, you got to the end and we didn't know what the answer was. And we're like, well, yeah, that's that's life. It's an ongoing conversation. There wouldn't be these struggles and tensions if there was an immediate answer. And so we want to be honest into that too. So sometimes we often do leave things sitting up in the air, if you like, but hopefully with some thoughts to continue with. So, but yes, it's a really, I think particularly in this world of social media where strong disagreement gets clicks, and that's what the algorithm puts up there, to actually just sort of pull it down and have a conversation which is explorative, is kind of quite countercultural, but really necessary here.
Yeah, and I think there are two vices. One is the sort of postmodern, no one can know anything, no truth is ever settled. But the other vice is the particular vice of our age, which is sort of I know the answer to every single question, which has a sort of rhetorical power, but it's attractive, but it's untrue. It's so deeply untrue, and actually, of course, destructive. It's a massively destructive way to be.
And I think with the fact that, so sort of moving on beyond our own personal differences and so on, one of the benefits of the podcast and the project is that it's always got both our voices, and then we do invite other people's voices in who've got expertise or experience. And it's a way of trying to avoid that I've just got all the answers that you get from Christian leaders, where you get a definitive answer. And so because there's always that ability to discuss it, and because we are different people, we sort of are modelling that, on serious issues, you need serious thought rather than having this authority figure who comes in with the one definitive answer.
Yeah, I think what we've also tried to do as part of a kind of a sideline to the project, actually, is to be a bit of a counter to Christian. I'm trying to think of the polite word, to the tendency to promote unresearched and unbacked opinions. So we want to make sure that things are properly, the opinions we cite, the people we speak to are properly expert. And there's too much amateur thinking in the Christian world. There's too much of an assumption that the Bible is the answer to all problems, or all answers every question, instead of the Bible answers the vital ones. I think the fear of the Lord is only the beginning of wisdom. It's not all of wisdom. It's not all of it. Prompts you to look into properly at the world, and I think we want to model that sort of wisdom seeking as well.
And I think that's part of what we're trying to do with how do you have good conversations about difference. Part of it is having truth, and truth needs to be serious thought, and it needs to be based upon the reality of the world that's out there. And so yes, so as we've gone on, and particularly over COVID and so on, we have discovered that one of the things that we're doing is counteracting, for instance, things like conspiracy theory or bad use of data or so on, because how can you have a good conversation over some of the tensions unless you have a truthful conversation that's seriously based on real research and so on. Yeah.